Hi everybody, welcome to the Purpose People podcast. Today I've got Charlott McAnsh of See No Bounds. So welcome to the sofa.
Oh, thank you. Really lovely to be here. So thanks for having me.
No, it's long overdue. We had your husband on not so long ago.
Yeah.
And his podcast went down really well. So let's hear the story from the other side of things and what you do behind the scenes. So just tell us a little bit about See No Bounds to start off with, just so we can get a bit of context for the business that you work in.
Yes, it's a bit of a story actually, which I'm gonna do a little short version if we've got time for that.
Yeah, okay.
So See No Bounds was literally set up in 2014, and Jamie set it up then to reach out to people who had to diversify and adapt in life, because he basically woke up paralysed overnight.
Yeah.
Which is something obviously that changed his life forever. I wasn't with him then, but he set up See No Bounds because he realised there was nothing out there just to help, like what wheelchair should I get and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it was always part of a community, and that's what we built on. So I met Jamie in 2019, and I sort of didn't realise at the time, but I was working crazy hours and I was travelling a lot with my work. Always had a bag packed and off I went. I don't have children, so I was always the first one in the company to go somewhere when it was somebody needed.
Yeah.
And when I met Jamie a few months in, I think we were out walking the dog, and I was talking about work for about 2 hours, and he gave me a book called Made It Through the Rain by Beverly Jones. It's a good friend of his and good friend of mine now. And he said, I think you should read this. So I read the book and I literally thought, I'm on the way to burnout. It's a very raw book about burnout, and I had no idea. I didn't realise that I kind of I kind of stopped seeing friends and lots of sort of signs, but I was always a strong person and I thought that's never going to happen to me. But reading the book, I thought, my goodness, I need to do something. So 2 weeks later, I quit my job basically. And joined Jamie in the business, which you're a family business, so you know what that's all about.
100%.
And we were very focused on the disability community at first, which I didn't actually feel comfortable with because I'm not disabled. So I thought, what can I say about, products and all that? So we were a drop shipping company, a community-based drop shipping company, and Jamie's a speaker. So I was sort of doing all the PR for it, admin, the actual back office stuff. And then when 2020 happened, literally Jamie's words were, the whole world has become paralysed. And I know what that feels like. And I thought, wow, that's quite a strong message. And we thought we actually set out to then open up the community to other businesses. And helping them to come online. So we did all sort of things like mind, body, spirit events, and we did the first wine tasting online. My background is events and hospitality.
Okay.
So we supported businesses who kind of won awards during lockdown and couldn't do anything, and people were like, oh my gosh, how's that going to happen?
Yeah.
And people were literally getting the tasting menu delivered to their house with the case of, 3 bottles of wine or whatever we had. And I think at that point we were allowed to be 6 people in each other's houses. So we just met up online. It was fab. It was absolutely brilliant. And Ossie Clark, who's a famous wine writer, and he actually picked it up. And now they do wine tastings online all over the world. I mean, it became a thing. So
because I remember like I was nominated for an award and whatever, and then it was cancelled within a week. I think it was where we went down the second lockdown, and then they opened it back up again, but then they was starting to creep some restrictions in, so they cancelled the award ceremony a week before the actual event. And so basically all I knew of winning, or I got highly commended, was a heavy envelope. So what's this? And look, there's a trophy in there. And I got an email, but it didn't feel like an award ceremony. It was just like something that actually happened. But I felt that in that time, I mean, the best thing for me as an entrepreneur and for people was to get online and get on with like-minded, like-hearted people, because the issue was that everyone felt alone and isolated, and then to go online with a whole load of people enabled you to almost collaboratively and collectively fight the fight to get through this together, because other than that you were stuck, you were on your own.
And you felt, I mean, being online, you felt like you were alive when you were having the conversations and meeting up, and it became part of life. And that's what we built on now. So literally, fast forward a little while, so we're a business directory, but also a global network. So we became a network business, basically because the members wanted to meet up more. So we never kind of set out to be another network. But we grew in to evolve into becoming a network, which we launched this year. So it's the story. I think everyone always says the feedback is always that it feels like people really know each other because everyone has been invited by myself or Jamie or the leaders of the groups.
So they feel part of it.
Yeah.
So interesting enough, because your background, go back.
Yeah.
You were involved in sort of the hospitality trade from quite young, wasn't you? You grew up in it. So you've taken those principles that you learned and taken them online, so to speak.
Yeah.
So just a little bit about you then, Charlotte. When you talked about, because we've had Beverly Jones on. So she will be on at some point. I don't know what number.
Yeah.
Well, she probably have already been on by the time people listen to this. But burnout, being a very real thing. What do you think is the sort of like the biggest red flag when you're on that cycle? Do you
Removing yourself. So I did everything that I needed to do. Obviously, travel. Cook and look after people. I had a housemate at the time. I had my relationship broke down a little bit before that, which was a 25-year long relationship. So that was probably part of it as well.
Yeah.
And then I just realized that I was living in this little cottage in the middle of nowhere with a housemate and the dog and the chickens, and I literally just removed myself from everyone.
Wow.
And your friends don't notice for a little while, especially if you're not living in the same village or so you can get away with it for quite a long time, I think, before people will realize.
Yeah.
Because you message people and stuff, and people think that everything is okay. So I think if you're feeling that you're starting to remove yourself and making excuses for going out to functions and things like that, then really do seek some help, because I think that's a slippery road.
And do you think women are more, how do I put it, would admit it, whereas guys don't, or do you see it the other way around? What's your
I don't
experience?
know. For me, it was always, because I've always been a bit of a tough cookie, I think.
Yeah.
It's always been like, you get on with it and you just do what you need to do. And, and I just never thought that it would happen to me, because I've always just got on with life. And, I've always traveled on my own, and I lived abroad for a long time on my own, so I've always been used to that.
Yeah.
So I just didn't see any of the signs, and I really didn't realize that anything was wrong. I thought it was perfectly normal.
So in terms of like networking then, so you obviously got a networking family that you've got with Bounce. So do you check in with your guests regularly, or the members, so to speak, to watch for those warning signs and stuff like that? How does that work?
Absolutely. I think when you're running sort of a community-based business like that, the whole thing becomes very personal. So I think my sort of thing is not to kind of become too much of a mother, because I do tend to be a bit of a mother hen and wanting to look after everyone. So obviously it's important to look after yourself as well. But I think checking in with people and making sure they're okay, making sure that people have what they want. You learn very quickly, I think, when you listen to people. So that's one of my messages always, is to listen to what other people have to say in networking. I think that's something that many people don't do. They go there to network and they hand out their cards and they tell everyone about what they do, but they actually forget that the main part is to listen to people and hearing what they got to say, because that's how you get to know someone. And then, referrals and all that sort of thing, that comes so easy once you get to know somebody.
Yeah, it's definitely relationship, and for me, that's something that I've really noticed, that there's definitely an age thing. I think that's sort of the older generation. And when I talk older, you're talking sort of like mid-50s and above. It's all about...
I'm not old yet then.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
I've got 5
I'm
more
careful
years.
because I'm closing that gap. I like, just what age and then add... But the point of it is that certainly I would say baby boomers who are almost retirement age now are very much about results. So it'd be like, I'm going to a networking event. Oh, get some business then.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like that's the reason I'm going. And it is to some extent, but it's also... if you flip it on its head, it's about connections and connectivity and working with other people. And I think for entrepreneurs and business owners, like networking is a lifeblood because you're surrounded by people that are a bit like you.
Yeah.
And that's a strange environment because we're always used to, you know, there might be you and you might have a team, and they look at life a little bit differently. So it's a case of, for me, networking, particularly in lockdown as well, really helped me get through the tough times.
Yeah.
Because there were everybody worrying about the same thing. Can they do business? Can they get online and that sort of stuff? So, you know, you doing that and helping transition people and stop, you know, locking yourself up and hiding, is get online and let's have a conversation is brilliant, you know.
Yeah.
And I think the networks that did that are still around today, and the ones that didn't, they can't recover from it, you know.
No. And I think one thing I always say, and I think is quite pertinent to this podcast, because I love the podcast that, you know, it's all about purpose. And I always say to people, whether it's online or whether you're going to an event, you know, whether you're going to an award ceremony, everything that you do in your daily routine is networking. You just always meet people. So that's networking. So it shouldn't change when you go to a networking meeting. You go there with a purpose.
Yeah.
And I always say, you know, go there with a purpose. And people go, what do you mean? And I said, but you're not going to be able to speak to 100 people in the room.
There you go.
And online, obviously, like we do, you have 4 one-to-ones. So you meet 4 new people. But go there with a purpose of following up then with those 4 people. Or if you're going to an event, you know, pick out maybe a handful of people that you really want to get to know and take the time to listen and build that relationship, because I promise that will be so much more useful than running around like a headless chicken handing out 50 cards to people.
Well, exactly, and even in the chats where people are chatting to everybody, you know, it's like just listen to what people have got to say and see where the synergies are, and you only need 4 or 5 people, and that's enough.
Yeah.
And if you think you've gone from no relationships to 5 relationships, that's a lot to manage. But in doing so, is understanding that if they got a similar target market, you could all work together to refer one another.
Yeah.
You know, people don't always see that. It's like, oh, I'm in the room, how much money can I make? And it's like, no.
And people get worried people think about the competition. And I actually think that it's just not a word that I kind of use, because I do think it's all about collaboration.
Yeah.
And so many businesses, I mean, do collaboration and do bring in other businesses to projects when they're working on it. There's always scope for collaboration, I think.
We had it. So many years ago, I joined a network, and the guy in the room, because you're at this particular network, you're only allowed like one person in one category. So because I just wanted to get in the room, I was social media, which is, you know, very tiny bit of what we do. It's got bigger because of the nature of the way it went. And this other person was the graphic designer. And, you know, naturally you're like, oh, okay, so he's a graphic designer. It's going to be pretty hard for us to get anything type thing. And anyway, I think it was about the second time I visited, we just sat down at each other and he said, look, if you want to join, I got no problem. And it was a case of we can work together, because ultimately it's only myself. And I haven't got an agency behind me. So if I get a project that I can't deliver, then we'll work together, vice versa. So that relationship's 10 years old now.
Yeah.
You know, and it's been brilliant. It's taken us all over the place. We're, you know, you know, we talk on a regular basis. There's opportunities. I think we've got one of our bigger clients has come as a result of that relationship. And that's the point, is that collaboration. You're one conversation. And sometimes it's the brave conversations to say, look, I know you're doing this and I'm doing this, but what about us working together? What do you think? And that's for me, that attitude to collaboration. It's like completion, not competition.
Yeah.
You know, we can complete each other's worlds if we are grown up about it, and we can get greater reach if we not threatened by each other and say, look, I can't facilitate every graphic design client in the world, and you can't serve everyone like I can. And at the end of the day, having that foresight has helped me massively in the business. You know?
Absolutely. And I love those sort of stories. And I think that's a good top tip for people when they're looking for, how can I make referrals? Ask them if they work with associates. Because that open question often leads to other sort of conversations. And it's a good way of getting in there to sort of say maybe there could be collaboration. And also, people always buy from people and with purpose. But so you choose hairdresser, you're going to choose, who you want to work with. And that's very much, I think, the strength behind Sina Bound. So that's why I like to. And I thought it was something that everyone had. And I realized that it's a bit of a skill because it's pairing up people. So somebody comes to me and go, I need a new accountant. We have a huge directory of accountants, but because you know the person, you know who they will be looking for, and you can ask, do you need VAT returns? Do you need just bookkeeping? And then you give them a handful. I think you really get on with these people.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I probably won't need a hairdresser. but the point is, you're right. It's like the person, and the more you get to know the person, you'll know if they're the right fit.
Yeah.
There's people that I know that they're probably very good at what they do, but maybe don't see life like I do, and that's not always a bad thing. But if you're going to be like deep in your accountant and stuff like that, you want someone who's fighting your corner rather than a transactional thing.
And you got to feel that it's some synergy between what you do. You just want to feel right. And if you give person a choice then of contact these 4 or 5 people and see what you think.
And I think for us, we've got an amazing accountant, but we've also got a client that's also an amazing accountant, so we'll champion the ones that we think will work for each accountant, if that makes sense. They may fit better with them or may fit better with these, and that's it. It's about, again, just helping people along, referring people to the right people so it's the right fit. And I always say this, it's like when you're going clothes shopping, and I learned this because I got footballer's legs, so my problem is that if I go and try and hire a suit for an event like the GBA Awards the other week, I'm on size 42 waist and I still can't get the trousers over my knees. So then my self-esteem plummets through the floor, and I was like, what am I doing? But the reality is I then go to TK Maxx, find a pair of golfing trousers with my waist size, and they worked. They fit perfectly.
Fun, isn't it?
I was like £15, but the point is I found the right fit. And that's it. It's not sometimes about size; it's about the right fit.
Yeah.
So you could have an amazing accountant that's like 200 people strong and absolutely smashing it, or you can have a small accountancy practice that actually will give you the due attention that you actually need, or understands your sector than anybody else, and that's the right fit.
Yeah.
So from a clothing perspective, finding the right fit is better than the right numbers and waist size. So like a 36 is really like a 46 in a different company with a different pair of trousers. We're
going to get down a rabbit hole with this one.
Yeah, it's true. Because I remember being sat in the changing room with my guys because I was running a football team, and we were all moaning about H&M because none of us could get any trousers on because we're all like built like footballers.
No, and also their sizes are so tiny.
Yeah, but they say the same, and it's like, no, that's not a 38 waist, and we could get the... And everyone's like going, is it me? And they go, no, it's the same for me as well. And it was almost like a therapy session. All these guys going, I'm not getting fat then. It's like, because you couldn't really talk about it. But for women, it's the same. It's like a size 12 in one shop is a size...
Oh, I think I got everything in the wardrobe from size 10 till 20.
Exactly.
There's everything there.
So I tend to shop a lot now at TK Maxx because it's like different clothes, different. So when you're shopping with fit, you don't care. It's just what fits, what works, what looks good. So I'm probably a bit of an odd shape anyway. But the point of it is that when you're looking for a business, don't do it based on their size reputation. See if it is actually they help, but it's the right fit. And it's the same with your network and relationships, isn't it? It's the right fit. Like you guys, you come to Humans on a Monday, and the people that you bring along are such a good fit that they end up speaking. That's a great thing because we're slightly different in terms of we're not a business network. We're all about being happier, healthier, smarter and kinder. But we share similar people, but they're also great to speak. That's the right fit. We know why we work together well and get on you and Jamie because we got like-hearted people.
Yeah, and people always love that as well, I think, because when it feels right to invite people along and who's going to enjoy, the company of the people that are there. I think the event that you run on the Monday night is just lovely. It's just so lovely. And I think it's just got that kind of uniqueness about it. And I know that I can really comfortably bring people in and they will have a really good night. And I usually say to them, I don't really know what it is, but it is just a lovely event, and just come along and I know you'll enjoy it.
And everyone that does, they go, that was great. I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And you go, well, that's it. I mean, I can't put my finger on what to call it, but, you know, the fact that you got two people giving a speech that are encouraging people, an environment full of entrepreneurs and leaders in the room, but the crowd want those people to succeed. But then just even in the conversations, everyone's encouraging one another.
Yeah.
And
it feels like a very safe place to speak, I think, especially because there's so many speaking events, you know, when you get a little bit further, perhaps as a speaker, as a career. But, you know, we all have stories, we all have journeys that we've been on. And if you feel like you want to share that to maybe help somebody else, it just feels like a really safe environment to be able to do that, because nobody would ever laugh at you or anything like that. You know, it just feels like it's a really lovely place to be able to share and maybe help another business owner or another person. You know, sometimes there's students that come and, you know, just help them on the journey by listening to somebody else.
Exactly. I mean, like, you know, just so that for everybody that's listening, we run an event, Humans, which is one of my companies. It's about happy, healthier, smarter and kinder. We run an event at the Square Club. Now, the Square Club, we run an event third Monday of every month there. They host us, and we run the Humans event just to encourage people. And the people that come really enjoy the atmosphere and the environment. But what I like about Humans, it goes back to that networking thing. I remember one networking event, I didn't speak to hardly anyone. We just sat and talked most of the night.
Yeah.
You know, but I remember that because we got to know more about you or whatever. And that's the liberating thing of trying to be friends to everybody, or sit down and chat to the relationships that you want to build. And Humans allows you to do that. So yeah, you can go and chat to 17 people, 20 people or whatever. Or you can just chat to one or two people and there's no pressure.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. It's no pressure. You don't feel like you know, need to be there to do business. It's not about that. It's about building the relationships.
So just tell us a little bit about See No Bounds, because obviously it's morphed now from, you know, it was an online community or whatever. And there are other things that you do, but just give us a premise for what See No Bounds can do and support businesses, and what makes it slightly differently from other networks that are out there.
I think the USP of the network is the fact that everyone has been invited by myself or Jamie, or now as we evolved into a networking company, being invited by the hosts.
Yeah.
And, you know, so with the hosts, they invite their own sort of people, and it just follows through the whole ethos. The USP is the platform. Yeah. Where people can connect. And I don't know about you, but sometimes when you go networking, you come back and you have all the cards from people, or if it's online, you've taken a million notes. Yeah. And one of the things that I love about the platform is that if you go to the groups, if we're hosting an event in Cardiff or Bristol, or for example, you can join that group and you'll see everyone who's attended. And you can also see who is attending. So you can already create the friendship online with them, and build, you know, a little bit of a rapport even before you come as a guest, which is a really nice thing to be able to do, I think. Yeah,
I think it's good to see. You can see the people that are going to be there, and there's people that are in the room. I think that's really helpful, because I mean, for me, it's like if you've got an idea of who's in the room, at least you can sort of find who you really want to talk to, rather than just turn up and like you don't know who to talk to. Which is,
We focus everything that we do. So Jamie always says it's been built around me. So I absolutely don't like 60 seconds. Yeah. I don't know many people that absolutely love 60 seconds. I've never come across a lot of people who love that. And I think especially online, it's different when you're in a room, but online as well. If you're going to listen to 30 people doing their 60 seconds, you get bored. So we do the 10-second introduction, and then we focus literally on building relationships. So it's 4 one-to-ones. Yeah. And I think that's really easy as well. So we work a lot with startups, and 60% of the business is probably businesses that are growing.
Yeah.
So 3 to 5 years into business, maybe looking to take on their first employee, that sort of thing. And then we have about 20% that are established businesses who want to give back, but also they will provide services that the growing businesses will need. So it's one of the only networks where I feel that it's across the board. So you have the startups, you have growing businesses, and you have established businesses. And actually they communicate very well together because those relationships have been built, and it's about the collaboration like we mentioned earlier. And I see that happens a lot, and I think that's why it's unique.
Are most of your events face-to-face, or are they all online?
Most are online. Quarterly we do meetups.
Right, great.
So we just call them meetups because, again, we don't do the whole 60-second and thing. So it's a chance for people who belong to a core group to be able to see each other sort of every 3 months, face to face as well.
I think the thing with the 60 seconds, and I think, I'm used to public speaking, not that I'm anywhere near where Mr. Jamie is, but the point of it is that I struggle with the 60 seconds because it's a performance.
Yeah.
It's not. Your authentic self you can bring into a 45-minute talk or a 30-minute talk or a 20-minute talk. But that's 60 seconds. You just even been talking in front of people, you feel under pressure. You feel like there's a spotlight on you. And if you look at most people's biggest fears are speaking in front of people.
Yeah.
It's just the combinations terrifies a lot of people. But if you can say, look, come along, and you don't have to do it, already you've broken a whole load of friction there straight away.
Yeah.
Where if people feel a lot more comfortable in terms of engaging.
Yeah, and I think that helps, especially young people. I love helping young people into business and seeing it's always been, I've always worked with really young teams, and business development is part of my background.
Yeah.
So helping sort of startups getting into business, and they network in a very different way as well, and they really find it quite difficult to walk into a room. But if you say to somebody that you can come along and just have literally conversations with 4 different people, they go, oh, that doesn't sound too scary, I can do that. And it's lovely to see how that evolves. And I always say as well, if you probably never met a business owner who don't like talking about themselves. So if you're a little bit nervous about networking, ask questions, because people love talking about themselves.
Their favourite subject.
Yeah, and they love talking about their business. So, and that's how, you probably get to know them really well, and then you can obviously lead to referrals then, because you got to know them. So if you're a little bit nervous, that's a really good top tip, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of like where you see No Bounds going, what sort of, where do you see this going? Do you see it becoming a global thing?
We actually won the Global Entrepreneur of the Year this year, which was really, really exciting. So we definitely global. We already run a global meeting, which we did all the way through. So that's the one that Jamie and I host on a monthly basis.
Right.
We also set up Get Connected Singapore, which is a really lovely small group for businesses who want to break into the UK.
What's
and have
the time
that collaboration.
difference there?
So we run that at the moment, because it's summertime, so we run it 9 till 10 in the morning, and it's there 5 till 6 p.m. So that works quite well. Yeah, and it's interesting because that's been a really sort of small group, but actually some of the best referrals have been made in there, because it's people that want to be global. So a lot of our businesses are online businesses that can work anywhere.
Yeah.
So that's a big focus for us. So what we're looking to do next is more of the industry related networks. And also we recently launched Get Connected Inclusively, which has been a fantastic group. It's amazing. It's about businesses who want to be able to become more inclusive.
Yeah.
And also there's a lot of people there who are, who have disabilities. And it's really interesting because the group, again, you just feel safe. And we always have a chat at the end, and people just open up about, like depression or burnout or their disabilities. And, and that's really lovely to see in a networking group, because that doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't. And I think that's the power of community, and the depth of a community where people can be vulnerable rather than all posturing and pretending that they're, this, that and the other. You're going behind, you're going deeper, and you're going behind the person behind the brand, so to speak. That it's like, do I really want to engage with this person, or what they like and how they are? And I think that's great that people can be that vulnerable in those rooms and those conversations. I like the thing of the illustration that you used about Singapore, for example, that you've had some great referrals, and that leads me to the next thing, is that you are one conversation away from transforming your business.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of networking, right? It could be
Absolutely.
one conversation could literally transform your business.
Yeah.
And that's for me why I'm such a big advocate of networking, purely because I've seen it. You know, I've been talking to one person, someone, and then a whole load of stuff has come out of it. And I see it as strands, like there are these multiple conversations that are carrying on, and some of them are still running from a conversation I had 10 years ago that's producing more and more and more and more.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of networking. It's like that relationship, you can see not only them, but all the people that are connected through that person, and there's that relationship, and they're saying that way. And then when you're in tough times, like COVID, you're like, right, who do I know? And I mean, that was the best thing about it. It was like, who do I know? Who am I connected with that might need help?
Yeah.
Or who can you recommend that might need? And that's what got us through. Networking got us through COVID. There is absolutely no question. And I think if I had not had that foresight of networking, you would have given up.
Because it was, and the events that we ran was just incredible. Like the Mind, Body, Spirit, it was 300 events over 3 days. It was harder than any festival of anything I've ever done. And we realized really quickly that people didn't want to sign in to something. They wanted to be anonymous.
Right.
And so literally in the first hour of starting sort of running all the events that we had planned for the 3 days, we switched to StreamYard.
Okay.
And that happened in the background. And, so things like that, you obviously, when you run events, things happen all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the same when you're digital. So all of a sudden it was like all the scrap Zoom, do this, do that, because people just wanted to be able to turn up and just not know, so, that they were watching.
Yeah.
And people quite like to sort of tune in to all those different things. It reached 90,000 on Facebook alone over those 3 days.
Incredible.
Which was just incredible, but it just shows the power of that community out there.
So obviously you mentioned there's a platform and stuff. I mean, there are platforms out there anyway with such as like Facebook or LinkedIn and stuff like that. Where do you think, if you've got a natural extension to what you do, is the best place? Is it LinkedIn or is it Facebook or?
LinkedIn. So we are a B2B platform, just like LinkedIn. So you know how you can tag people? I've done it with you quite a lot. When you tag, you can do exactly that. So if they part of Seen a Bounce in the directory, the directory is free, so anyone can be part of the business directory. Mm-hmm. So if you're part of it, you just literally can tag them there and then. So it's a really sort of easy way to be able to find one another if you've obviously been to a networking meeting or an event.
Yeah.
We run Get Inspired events as well. So instead of having speakers at the networking, we keep the networking to an hour. And then we have Get Inspired events, which our networkers can host.
Yeah.
And that's about giving value to members, but also learning about somebody's business. So it's like a speaking slot, but a bit of a webinar with a Q&A. Yeah. And they've been so popular. We've done everything from intellectual property to how to set up a mastermind, how to become a speaker, all different subjects. And what you get then is people that are actually interested in the room. So they're smaller groups, but there are people who are interested in that subject, which helps the host as well, I think.
So from your perspective, we know Jamie, we've met Jamie, you obviously know him very well. He's quite charismatic and he's out there and he's chatty and whatever else. So he almost like he's in the room and he's chatting and holding the scene. What's your strength, Charlotte? What would you say your
People? Yeah, Jamie is actually quiet at home, which I let you in on secret. People think that he's the same at home. There's sort of out there quite loud, and at home he's quite quiet.
It's probably,
I think the main thing when you have a business with business partners, that are not relationship in such as a romantic relationship, or if you have a business with your partner or husband, wife, is that you have different strengths. Because if you're starting to, obviously I had restaurants before, and I was front of house and the chef is in the kitchen. And as soon as you start merging that together, that never sort of goes well. So I think the most important thing is that you have different things that you do. So you know, I'm very much in the background looking after the community and the network and the events and inviting people to speak and that sort of thing, and the whole strategy of growing Xenobounds. And then Jamie, as you can imagine, have about 100 ideas a day. Once he's got the idea out of his head, then it's gone. So it's up to me kind of to say, right, that idea could actually work. And then in the next structure meeting, we go, actually, I really like this idea. And he's like, oh, did I come up with that? Because that would already been gone.
He's on to the next thing.
Yeah, he's on to the next thing. So we're both ideas people, but it's about putting them into place and how we can then implement it. And that's sort of my strength. And I love people. I've always loved people, which is probably why I was in hospitality for many, many years. And I just love hearing people's stories and journeys and wanting to help them and be able to make them comfortable, and which is also the soft spot of helping young people into business as well.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I mean, you know, I think me starting out again, it took me a long while to discover networking, you know, and I think it was a case of when I did, it was all a bit alien. The reality is I always had different people groups and hung out with different sports teams and whatever else, but I didn't make the connection between that kind of behavior and then doing that in business as well. And that's why probably once I got an understanding of it, I felt it was a lot easier. You know, for me, it was like, that's a natural fit for me to network and connect. But, you know, I think anyone that's out there in the public domain, you're talking and networking, it is tiring. It can get tiring. And
I always say to people, though, that I think people overcomplicate networking sometimes. And if you know, we've been networking since we were in the sand pit. When you're speaking to your friend and you're building sandcastles, you know, when you're a little one, you know, that is connecting, that is networking as well. And I think when people all of a sudden bring business in, it becomes very sort of stilted and, right, I've got to do this and I've got to get, you know, my money worth and the return on investment, and you complicate it then. So it becomes, keep it simple.
You turn it into a transactional thing, and relationships aren't.
No.
And I think that's why it kind of jars. It doesn't quite work. So if you enter this networking world with a transaction in front, I think you really struggle. And there are people that do. They just don't get it. They I've been to 4 and I didn't get any business. Well, there's a reason for that. You know, you've seen it as a transaction. I think for me, it's about relationships, and maybe there needs to be a better term than networking.
Yeah,
maybe networking has got its own stigma, so to speak. Maybe there is another word, but I'm not going to solve that now. But maybe but it sort of like that has that. You say networking, you immediately think this. And that, for me, I just always steer away from it. I'd say it's relationships.
And I think the one thing as well you must come across. So we do a lot of live shows with our members, basically so people can see the person behind the brand. But as soon as you kind of interview somebody like that as well, you're talking business, their voice will be in a certain way. And as soon as you swap it over and talk about maybe a testimonial that they had, or you ask them, you know, how did you help? Can you tell us how you helped the client? Their voice usually lifts and it becomes happy. And I always find that hilarious when you kind of, because people get worried about the camera, people get worried about talking, what they're going to say. So they're very monotone and sort of not speaking up. And then when they get to speak about the client, they help, literally their eyes light up, the whole persona change. And I love that.
But then that goes back to that. It goes back to that thing of that performance, isn't it? They see it as a performance and they're trying to perform in front of everyone. And it's like, no, just be you. You know, that, and I think for me, it was like, that's why I struggled sometimes in front of the camera, was that I felt it was a performance. I've got to get it polished. That's why podcasting works for me, because I could just be me, and then I turn this off and I just carry on having the same conversations without 3 cameras around. You know, it should be an extension of who you are. And I think networking done well is that people can be who they are and naturally find their fit, find the people that they gravitate to. Because they're just being themselves. And that's why, you know, like with humans, for example, there's no one pretending there. They are, how was your week? Terrible. You know, oh yeah, tell me more about it. Not like, oh, I better go and find someone else that says it was amazing because I might get some business out of them. It's like, well, tell me why it was terrible.
Oh, I remember once when we turned up to Humans, Jamie had not had a good day. He was in severe pain and he really didn't want to go, but we arranged to meet people there and we were bringing quite a lot of people. And I think he saw Ollie and Ollie said, what's the matter? And he said, oh, I'm not good. And they just had a really lovely chat. And then there was another person, Tieran, who he's very close to, and they just sat down and just chatted all night. And you know what? He just had a really uplifting experience. But, you know, if you're having a bad day or something, that's when you don't need, you know, don't go and shut yourself away. Seek somebody out, you know, that you can get help with, because otherwise I think that spirals what we started with in the beginning.
It's a weird one because like I've been to every single one except every single one, but I've missed 2 in a row and I hadn't, and you miss it. And I think every time it comes around, both me and Ollie say, oh, I needed that. Yeah. So it's great for us as well. It's not just about, you know, providing the environment. It's great for us to encourage ourselves with other people on that journey. But, you know, networking for me and having people at the end of the day is all about having conversations. And the more conversations you have, funny enough, the more opportunities begin to manifest themselves. And that's the power of networking for me, is getting in the rooms to have the right conversations.
Yeah, and also don't just sort of stereotype people. So when you come into, you might think, oh, I can't do any business with somebody who's a life coach, you know, but they know probably, if you're a networker, probably a lot more, but the standard is that every person probably knows about 200 contacts.
Wow.
Obviously, if you're a networker and do that regularly, it might be 2,000. But just think about, if you have a group of, you know, 6 people, that's 1,200 people that you can reach just by having conversations with the 6 people in the room.
That's incredible. And then, you know, for me, that puts into perspective the opportunities that are left on the table when you don't speak to anyone.
Yeah.
You know, I was at an event in London the other week and I was tired because we'd been out for most of the day and the event wasn't to the evening. So I just sat in the corner and then someone I know comes sat next to me and talked. I thought, I'm tired. I'm not going to get up. And then literally by the end of it, there was about 15 of us sat around because everyone kept coming going, oh, can I join you? Because they didn't know they were on their own. And I had a brilliant night, but I didn't move. Yeah. So sometimes, you know, just having a conversation with one and then it turns to 3 and then turns to 4. And by the end of it, we got this whole table at the front and everyone sat around chatting, but I didn't have to move. It was brilliant. You know, it just because it's not about sharking it and trying to find someone. It's just have the conversations and then see where it might end up. And yeah, I mean, it ended up with me making some great connections, you know, someone based in Ireland, you know, and stuff like that. So I think for me, see networking more as having conversations, and the more conversation you have, somehow the more opportunities happen, and then you'll be successful.
And surround yourself with people as well that are like-minded to you. So I think when you start in business, you often you ask advice from friends and family, and they're never going to understand what you do, and they love you and they want the best for you. So, you know, but you've got to also meet like-minded people and other business owners, because they are the ones that are going to understand when you're having a tough day, or, you know, business might not be coming as easy as it was. And, you know, surrounding yourself with like-minded business owners, I think, is really key to success in business.
Yeah, because if I go to my mum and I've had a tough time, she'll go, let me at 'em. It's like, yeah, okay, mum, that's not really going to help the situation. But like, you know, if you're in the room with people going, I've had a tough time at the moment, and they go, oh, what about this, that, and the other? Yeah. You know, if my mum's going to fight, don't bully my son, or you know, there is that. But the point of it is that when you're around people, there's like, well, let's think about solving and sometimes, you know, you might be in the wrong. Yeah. You know, and you're not seeing it. And a decent relationship, go, well, maybe you could do it this way. Oh, I didn't see it like that. And they can bring some normality to stuff. Yeah,
and everyone goes through it. Every single one. Yeah. I mean, if you don't, please come forward. But I think, you know, we all, and I love, so we do our Get Walking events as well. Yeah. And that is just lovely, because it's not business, it's more like brainstorming. And we're all out, you know, get muddy and wet, and, you know, and everyone is welcome.
That's just in the summer.
Yeah. But everyone is welcome, any age, you know, children welcome, dogs welcome. And we've been to Snowdon, we've done Penny Van, we've done King Arthur's, castle. So we've done sort of medium walks to really kind of, Snowdon is quite a big one. Obviously, we camped for 2 nights, but the stories and the connections that happen when you just go out on events like that are amazing.
Yeah, no, I
really
agree
amazing.
Changing the environment from that stale breakfast meeting.
Yeah,
Like you go to a hotel, have an average cooked breakfast, and you're like, I got up really early, and then you got the whole day to do. Whereas doing different things like that is it provokes different conversations. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, how does people get hold of you, Charlotte? How do they get in touch?
So we're really pretty much everywhere. So the website is scenabounds.co.uk.
Yeah.
And you can find us on @scenabounds on most social platforms, and obviously LinkedIn is a big one. So we Charlott McAnsh on LinkedIn. Always love to talk to people. So do connect, because if we can help one person move forward in their business, that would be super.
No, it's great. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to join us on the sofa. Long time coming.
I know.
The both of you should have been here, and we'd have got you both on.
Gosh, I wouldn't have got a word in.
But no, thanks so much for joining us. And yeah, I highly recommend getting in touch with Charlotte and the team. They're a great company, great people, and full of like-hearted people. So if you're looking for a tribe, come and find these guys. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Everybody, thank you for listening to the Purpose People podcast. You can obviously see us on YouTube, where you can see our wonderful setting here that we film every time we do a podcast. But you can also listen to us just in your ears on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and Google. Please like and subscribe to YouTube, and please leave a review on our podcast. It really helps us get the message out that can help people live a life on purpose, for purpose. We want to help you make purpose a priority.